Yes.
Hello, darling.
Hello. Have you started recording already?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, good. And the camera's on.
Camera's on.
Good, okay, good.
First film of Sagewlf interviews ever.
I'm honoured. I'm honoured.
You honor me daily.
Oh, well, mutual.
People, this is just going to be a love fest between Rachel and I, and you get to witness. Let's be clear.
Yes, and may I say that we are coming down off a girls' retreat weekend.
Yeah, a super duper love fest.
Super duper love fest of flying cloud 9.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah, intentional spiritual work together in community.
Mm-hmm.
Super powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and you had said that that was the first time that you'd ever meditated with someone else other than Chris, your husband, which is really amazing and powerful. And I've been thinking about that, like how much more we can be impactful in even our own personal spiritual work with the aid of others complementing us. That's a new concept for me.
Yes, absolutely. And I experienced it on a visceral level. So it was one that I hadn't actually, like, organizing this girls' retreat. Of course, I was looking forward to the various activities that we'd be doing and the personal growth and the group growth, but I hadn't expected the power of the communal spirit that was growing between us.
Yes.
And in particular in our meditations, I felt a really heightened sense of the individual consciousness blending and enhancing the unity conscious.
I feel like enhancing is an amazing word for that.
Yes, yeah. And I felt it on a visceral level.
Yes.
And I felt the expansion of my awareness in that deep state of meditation. I felt it expand with a sense of unity.
Yes.
You could really feel the oneness of the individuals coming together.
Yeah, like as
the
merger of
yes.
the merger of the spiritual. And I like that you said visceral, because that to me means like a physical element. So it's not just this intangible thing, it's something that is like literally overtaking every aspect of you.
Yes, it was a literal visceral feeling of uplifting. I could feel the lift in my body.
Yeah.
It was the lifting of my body, but it was in this sense of the lightening of my body. And of course it just, I have sometimes I experience quite clearly the levitation of my awareness, as it were, but in communal space it was actually a feeling of my body levitating within that conscious space.
Yes. Wow.
It's beautiful. And I definitely put that down to the power of the group uniting and meditating together, and the power of that universal consciousness.
And all lifting each other.
Yes, yes.
And aren't things easier to lift when you've got a friend?
Yes. Yes. Why would you lift a truck on your own?
Yeah.
Why not get like a gang of people to lift the truck?
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm laughing now every time I use the word beautiful, because Chris just said, when I asked him what his favorite quote, phrase, or saying is right now, he said, well, I just noticed words have come up like amazing or beautiful. Mm-hmm. So now I laugh at myself every time I use beautiful. Like that's the current word of expression,
Yes.
And then it gets overused, and then you're like, gotta switch it up.
Yes. I went through a phase of brilliant.
Yeah.
It's just brilliant.
How British of you.
So British.
So please tell the listeners your name.
Oh, well, my name is Rachel Reid Wilkie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And please describe our environment right now.
We are right now sitting in our backyard in Los Angeles. And when I say our, that is me and my husband's backyard in East Hollywood in Los Angeles. And it's our little peace haven away from the city. We have this beautiful lemon tree right in front of us that just gives birth every season, and I don't think we've ever, for years we haven't bought any lemons from a store. It provides and continues to provide. We have beautiful little plants dotted around. We currently have the land very much in desert mode. but we have our secret little 2-man sauna in the corner there, which you and I have had the privilege of sharing on many occasions.
Many occasions.
And then we have our little Zen fountain in the corner that we didn't turn on currently for audio, for respect of the audio.
Okay.
Yes, but that's also a beautiful, beautiful,
and
relaxing.
This lovely
presence.
living wall.
Yes, and we're surrounded by this beautiful, tall, 20-foot tall living wall of ivy, and it just creates this beautiful, not only a sound barrier, but a beautiful, energetic sanctuary in the midst of East Hollywood.
This space is so amazing to me. It drives me right back to reading The Secret Garden when I was a little girl, and how safe and adventurous and lovely that feeling is.
Yes.
So a childlike wonder and safety.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And this huge fern just kills me.
Oh, yes.
I kind of meditate to the fern every morning, actually.
Beautiful.
We have a thing.
Beautiful. Well, that fern is a fairly new member to the family.
Interesting.
Just maybe 2 years into our community.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah, the fern was planted quite recently.
He's very happy there.
And he's so happy because we have this one at the corner of the fountain doesn't get much direct sunlight because of the large walls behind it, and so the fern just loves that lovely sort of dank, moist, feminine energy over there. It's beautiful.
And as we know about ferns and what they do for cleansing the microbiome.
Oh, well, not particularly with ferns. Yes, what do they
do? Typically ferns represent old growth forests, is where they like to inhabit. Yes. So then when we go out there, we get the benefit by putting all of that into our bodies and breathing and spending time out there, at least 30 minutes, but preferably hours, right? The whole the Japanese concept of
bathing in the forest.
Bathing,
Yes. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, there you go. So kiss that guy.
Yes.
Tell me some things, or all the things that you're super passionate about.
Ooh, gosh, yes. Well, this won't necessarily come in a flow of priority, so I'm going to just release them as they come. I'm passionate about horses. I love horses, and that passion very much came from my childhood, where I had an incredible, beautiful, nature-driven childhood, and I grew up on a farm, and I had fields around me, and not that my family, it wasn't an operative farm, it was an old farm that my mum and dad purchased and we moved into, and it was rickety and old and it needed a fixing up. But of course, when I saw these old pigsties, I was like, that's going to be my stable. I'm going to get a horse. And, all through my younger years, just getting every book I could, every Christmas, every birthday, I'd ask for another book on horses, give me another book on horses, just learning and studying, how do I care for these animals, how do I care for their environment, how do I care for their diet, how do I care for their equipment and their tack. And then I was 14 years old, and a girl in the village was moving from the village to go to university, so she must have been obviously a few years older than me, and she was selling her pony. And she was moving way away from home, and she needed to sell her pony, and this pony had this really, really naughty reputation. Everybody in the village knew this pony, like in the horse society.
Yes.
And it was like, his nickname was Mini Muscle, and he didn't have a mini muscle.
Oh boy, that's where my mind went when you said he had a reputation in the village. I was like, I'm just gonna let pause on that. Yeah, but of course, no, we cannot pass that juicy bit up.
Exactly.
Mini muscle.
But he was so naughty, but he had so much potential because he was so fast.
Okay.
And she used to compete with him, but it was very hit and miss because sometimes he was so out of control.
Yeah.
The whole thing just, everything just shattered. Jumps were flying. He'd run out of the ring.
Oh my goodness.
He was like considered wild, and she had all of this tack that she would dress him up with to try and contain him. And so it was, she used a very tough bit on his mouth, chains under his chin, straps around his mouth, harnesses and martingales and everything to sort of control his natural speed and spirit, actually. So I think he probably just got naughtier and naughtier.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yes,
exactly.
Sounds like me.
Exactly, don't harness Sage.
Yes.
Anyway, I fell in love with him immediately, and of course I was begging my parents to buy him for me, and they were saying, oh, I don't know, you know, and not that they were in the horse society and knew any of these rumors, but they were just very concerned. I was only 14 years old.
Yeah.
Can you really commit to looking
your
after
first
this
horse
animal? Yes.
Yeah.
And so I did my best to prove. Anyway, a show came up, and it was this. It was a show. This was a particular show jumping competition, and the girl who owned the pony still, she said, well, would you like to compete? Why don't you take him into the show? She said, I was going to compete, but why don't you take him and just try him out on that level?
Wow.
And I said, well, I would love to, because I was
Without training?
Yeah, I'd ridden him once before.
Oh my gosh.
But I'd already entered into competitions
Okay.
before, but I think I'd only ever ridden him once before, and I never even thought about this. Yes, but I was thinking to myself, this is how I'm going to get my parents to agree to this. So I invited my mum and dad to come and witness the show, come to the show. And they weren't interested. They weren't even interested in horses. But I said, no, you have to come to this one show. I've never asked you to come and see me compete before, but this time you're going to come. And I'm going to be riding that pony, Minnie. And they said, okay. So they came. And I can, of course, explain to you the feeling. It was just magic. The whole thing was just magic, because, you know, there's a couple of rounds, you know, you compete and you get knocked out as you go, depending on your faults and your point system. So I got through to the final round, which is the speed round.
Wow.
Where I'm up against these competitors. And, of course, they were so well turned out. All of their horses had all these lovely plaits and bows, and all these girls just had these perfect little hairdos and their jackets and everything. And I hadn't even acquired any of those things. You've got, like,
jeans under your dress.
Yes. Like, I mean, I put my jumpers on, but, you know, I'm wearing a jacket that was my brother's that was belted because it was too big for me and things like this. But I'm doing my best to kind of get in the realm here, you know. And then I'm not joking. I literally came first.
What?
Me and Minnie, of course.
Yes.
We won the show, the whole show of my category. Because you're in there in categories, and I literally was standing there receiving my bright red first rosette, and I'm holding my rosette. I'm just so proud of myself. And as I walked out of the ring, because I have to lead everybody out of the ring, because of course I'm the winner.
Yeah.
And I walk out, and my parents were there, just, you know, and I just looked down to my dad. I said, "Now you're gonna buy me this horse."
Wow. Well, and what's so beautiful about that too is, again, beautiful. I just learned from my mom, speaking about her horse competitions, that a lot of the, like, super competitors actually have never met their horse that they're going to compete on when they go to that place. Sometimes they take their horses with them, but sometimes they don't. And it's really about the horsemanship of the person, that they can, whatever you want to call it, bond with that animal in a moment's notice and know how to read it. I mean, it really is. And so really kudos to you that, fuck yeah, at 14.
Yeah,
Damn.
14 years old. And of course my dad said, his response was, how can I say no? And so he didn't. So 6 weeks later, that little pony, he was mine.
Awesome.
And it was such a love affair. That's difficult to explain. It was just love. It was love of spirit, love of friendship, love of adventure, because Minnie and I, and may I say then, within the first 3 to 4 months of having him, I stripped him down to the basic bridle, the basic saddle. I took all that crap off him
and worked with him like that.
And I said, I'm gonna go with you on this journey. I'm gonna go as fast as you. I'm right here with you. I'm not pulling you back.
Yeah.
I'm not restraining you in any way. I'm trusting
life.
you. You take me, I'll take you. Let's go together. And he became, I mean, the people were just astounded at what had happened. They didn't even recognize him the next time I started showing up at shows, and continued to win, by the way.
Yes.
Because we were bonded in spirit, and there was no restraint. And no disrespect to the previous owner, but it was just this marriage between me and Minnie, and we just had it. We were sharing the same spirit of life, and
that's so rad.
I would just, like, pack my little picnic bag and just go off for 7-8 hours a day, and just take me and Minnie up to the lake, just gallop around for hours, and And so that was how that they are my strongest and most powerful memories of me as a young girl. But and the gift that Minnie gave to me to liberate me and allow my independence to grow. Yes. Because at 14 in England you can't drive, you have to wait till you're 17 at least. And so it was, how do I also experience this little village that I grew up in, but how do I experience the nature, and how do I independently say, yeah, I'm going to ride my horse like 10, 20 miles that way and explore that land.
That's amazing. Yeah.
He gave me so much, and I know that he received my love in return.
Yeah. And I'm thinking literally about my first car and how much that opened my world up. And I hadn't really considered that before. Yes, you got to literally transport yourself to other worlds.
Yes.
And watch the development of that effect on you, which is really amazing.
Yes.
Cool.
And of course, learning how to nurture and care for this living being.
Big time.
Which, I'd had many animals before. I mean, the whole house, we had anything with rabbits and guinea pigs and cats and dogs, and, but
nothing's like a horse.
Nothing's quite like a horse.
And the grooming and the careful.
Oof, yes.
I love that process.
And the smell. Just the smell.
I know. It's weird. I like horse sweat.
Yes, the horse sweat. Yeah. It's just, oh my goodness, it just...
Ode to horse sweat.
Yes, beautiful. So I think that was without doubt my first true passion of my life. Since then, I think there's probably been many. Art is a passion of mine. Viewing it, experiencing, also creating it and sharing it. Yes. So the whole world of art, and in the broad sense of the word, of course. Whether it's of any art form, it could be. Well, this is something actually, if I can rephrase it, that's something I'm now learning. I used to see actually art, and I was very passionate about it, but very much art in a structured way, meaning slightly objectified, exactly. So, obviously embracing all the arts. It could be music, or it could be painting, or it could be poetry or writing, or and I've always been, I just love to immerse myself in all of those aspects.
Yeah.
But I think I've now even broadened my perspective even further, and just to the point, and it might sound a bit esoteric, but the art of being, and the art of connection, and the art of mobility, and I see now art literally in everything.
Yeah.
And I really, really appreciate that broadening of my perspective. Still, though, that passionate moment when I'm standing in front of an incredible canvas, or I'm, circling this incredible sculpture, or, listening to that sound, or reading that poetry. I mean, it calms me, it settles me, I feel more expansive on the inside, and it just becomes a true source of inspiration for me.
It's interesting that you said that, because at the same time you said the art of being, I was going to say, it sounds like you've been being art. Really since the beginning. I mean, even caring for that animal.
Yes.
And bonding with it and adventuring with it is being art, but then for sure, even when you were objectifying and creating art in the world, you were still being that art. That art is emanating from you, and the way that you're applying yourself out into the world in each of those ways.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, we just become more aware of.
I think that's it. Exactly, the function of it, and the crucial, fundamental aspect of it as well.
Yeah,
it's that moment when you are creating your thoughts, creating your environment, creating your life. A lot of people use that word manifesting today, but I like the idea of creating, because
with more intention,
there's an intention, and it also allows the individual to be a real co-creator of that manifestation.
Yes.
So I really am understanding creativity on a much deeper level, and I really appreciate that, and we are all co-creating these beautiful, special moments every single second, and with that, as you say, you are being that creativity.
Yeah. And it's important that we take, it's the simple perspective of, like, I'm relevant in the creation of this in the way that only I can do it.
Yes.
And taking that empowerment with you and saying, I'm choosing to do this in this way of me.
Yes.
As opposed to this thing is happening or presenting itself to me.
Exactly, yeah. There's something more personal of that journey, using the word creativity or creating as opposed to manifesting.
Yeah.
And that's just perhaps, well, you're feeling it too. It's just that choice of word that
totally.
is just slightly shifting the power of perspective to one angle or another angle, to that of personal empowerment. Yes.
Yeah, and appreciating taking action in your role.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And giving ourselves a little positive feedback for like, we can give ourselves credit. We don't have to be so hard on ourselves all the time.
Exactly.
We can say, hey, I did a fucking cool thing there.
Yes, exactly.
I'm enjoying that.
I created that, or I co-created that, and so you feel an investment in that creativity, in that creative process.
Yeah.
Yes. And I would definitely say that that leads on to my more current passion, I would say, which is meditation and yoga and practices in general that co-create a state of mindfulness.
Yes, which is that state of mind that you're putting into every other thing that you choose to do in the world.
Yes.
And that's at the core of it.
And I see that very much as a creative process also.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is where there's such a unification, a bonding of meditation, and I use that in a general terms. There's so many different ways to meditate, but bring that mindfulness into your life. It requires a creative perspective to bring mindfulness, and I believe that when you're in a creative state of mind, it exudes a certain meditational approach or mindfulness to that creativity.
Yes.
So I'm seeing now in my current moment in life that there's this beautiful bond between creativity and mindfulness, and they almost bloom out of each other.
Yes.
You know, mindfulness will come from creativity, and creativity will come from mindfulness, and I see how they nourish each other and inspire each other.
Right. So moving from a linear person doing said artistic objective to the melding and the like you said, feeding of each other.
Yes,
and they literally become each other by the contribution of the other.
Exactly, yes, like a sort of a never-ending unfolding, infolding simultaneously. Yes.
Circular.
Yes, yeah.
The cycle. So contextually, let's back up a minute and just for the listeners' sake, you're coming from quite a few creative endeavors. You were in fashion design for a very long time, 20-ish years.
Yep.
And that was your objective creative endeavor at that point. And now you are you've been a poet for all of your life.
Pretty much all of my life,
and now you're turning your poetry into music.
Yes.
Which you're creating internationally, abroad and away from your stepson.
So my current stepson.
He would have been your child, in a strange way of saying that.
Yes, he was.
Who's a grown man now.
He's now, exactly, yes. He's a very lovely young man.
He lives in Sweden, and you guys are creating the most fucking epic music together.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
So I would like for you to just at least, state what you're comfortable with, but let's give some recognition to that artistic creation that you're doing, the name of it, where people can learn more about it.
Yes, thank you. So the project, I kind of refer to it as a project.
Yeah.
The project is called XI, and we do have an Instagram account, and from there you can get the link, which you'll have access to everything. But so the Instagram account is xi.spokensong. And so XI is a collaboration between myself and my stepson. Yes, my stepson from my first marriage. And we stayed very, very close over the years. And we always used to joke around when we were living together. We always used to joke around about, yeah, we're going to create something together, because of course he knew I was a poet and I shared poetry with him. He is an incredible musician. I mean, from a young boy, you never saw him without his guitar, you know. But he plays everything. It's from keyboard to guitar to drums to this. He can sing. He's got a beautiful voice. I mean, he's just this gorgeous little angel that came into my life. And I almost kid myself, like, I think I married his dad because I wanted to hang out with Eddie.
Yes, he was a conduit.
People bring
such
things to you. Beautiful light, beautiful light. And anyway, so we were able, 2 years ago, I was actually currently, at that time, I was working for a fashion brand that was flying me to Sweden back and forth on a regular basis. So, of course, Eddie lives in Stockholm, and I would add on extra days to the trip so that Eddie and I could hang out together.
Yes.
And I think just even maybe the first one, we just hung out and stuff. And then the second trip, we said, well, why don't we just go to your recording studio, hang out there, and I'll bring a bunch of poetry, and you bring your guitar, and we just started jamming.
Amazing.
Just jamming together. And I would be saying, hey, why don't we record this poem? You know, this poem needs like this really cool deep bass, you know, and then he'd pick up his bass and start, you know, doing this really cool bass riff. And so I'd record and he'd record, and does that? Yeah. And then he'd pick up the guitar and then layer another guitar on top. So some of the tracks were created in that moment, just spur of the moment. And there was one track in particular which was it's called Woman, actually, and it was literally this one moment. We met up and he picked up his guitar and I had the poem, and I just showed him it's roughly that long, but you know, rhythm, we're this particular way that we recorded this track, that it was complete and utter improvisation. Eddie just started with his guitar, and we spoke 2 seconds, like wistful, imagine the desert, imagine the boulders, imagine the bright heat just burning, imagine a crow crowing in the background, you know. So we put ourselves in that mindscape, and then Eddie started to play the most beautiful guitar I think I'd heard in fucking my life. And then I started just to slowly and softly recite this poem, and I don't even know how it happened, as the poem was, and of course he's in his zone, I'm in my zone, but we were just feeding off each other and the flow. And then before we knew it, I had kind of ended and he had just kind of ended, and then it was perfect, and we never changed a thing. That is it. That track, Woman, that's all it is. It's just that magic, pure expression in the moment, pure improvisation, and it just went through final mix process, but we didn't change anything of the core, and it was just sublime, literally. And then others, like I said, were pieces and pieces, and sometimes we'd put like a very rough track back, and then we really wanted that to be pumped up with some real like hardcore rock and roll, you know, and so Eddie would work on that post-production and add in extra layers and spend time with it. Anyway, let's say we worked with an incredible mix engineer to put the final mixes together, mixing and mastering, and then, but while the mixing and mastering was going on, because I realized this is going to take about 6 months, I felt there was still more to tell, and I was just loving the whole process, but I felt that there was a part of me that still hadn't been expressed through this project. So I started filming out in the desert, and just didn't quite know where this was going at the first, you know, but I kind of collected some images and some inspiration, and like, how would I visually tell the story of that poem, you know? And I'm working with the near final track now, but obviously it's going through its final process. And so so Chris was helping me at some point. Sometimes I was just using a tripod and recording and filming, and then I just I just completely threw myself into this creative process. And I thought, I'm actually going to create, with the help of Chris and a few family members, and of course asking Eddie and his girlfriend to be filming Eddie in Sweden. Just here's some inspirational pictures. Do something a little bit like this for this track, and do something a little bit like this for that track. But feel free, but here's just like a little inspiration. And so Maya, his girlfriend, was filming him in Sweden. Then they just sent me the raw footage, and then I went insane and basically created a video for each and every track on the album. So at this point we had allocated 6 tracks that we were working on. We were really happy with, you could call it an EP or an album, but it was 6 tracks, and they really fell into this beautiful storytelling. And so then there's a whole video for each one, and you know, I had no technical skills on this. I just said, I'm going to learn how to do this, and I'm going to teach myself how to do this, and I'm going to use this as a way to find a new way to express myself creatively. And so this just all launched September last year. So it got released 6 months ago, and we did this incredibly cool official release party downtown LA, and there was a big, it was a backyard, very kind of Burning Man actually. It was kind of like Burning Man meets Berlin, you know, like underground cool shit, but then very this beautiful
edge.
Yes, with a little bit of Burning Man candles and lanterns and you know, like Indian silk cushions, you know. So it was a mixture of all of that. And there was we did a film screening of the 6 videos one by one in the order that I have them, that tells this tale. But we preluded that with me actually committing myself to my first professional live performance. So that was just the most exciting, exhilarating feeling.
Playing Eddie's music in the background while you are live on stage reading through it.
That's right, because Eddie was, of course, in Sweden, so of course all of this project had been put together, as you said, cross-continental, and it was, you know, the Los Angeles had opened up, you know, the pandemic was sort of, it was, the city was slowly opening up, but it was still too much really to fly Eddie in and create that kind of environment. So yes, it was a pre-recorded track, actually 2 new tracks that we had worked on since. So it's 2 fresh tracks, and so it's just simply Eddie's guitar pre-recorded, and then me performing live. But you know, for one of the first times, I had to actually study all of my poems and learn them off by heart, and I'd never done that before. You know, I'd participated in many open mic sessions, but with my little notebook and with my sheet of paper. But this was actually a full performance with no aid, as it were. And it felt good. It felt really good.
Terrifies me still.
Standing
in front of people.
Oh, gosh.
I'm like, I forgot.
Yes, well, I've had a recurring nightmare about it my whole adult life.
Oh my gosh, that was a huge thing for you.
Yes, my recurring nightmare is I'm backstage, there's a whole theatre of an audience waiting for me. I'm backstage, the curtains are there, there's one single microphone on that stage. I realise I've never shared this with you. And there I am backstage, and my name gets called. You're on. And I'm like, what? And in my dream, I'm like, but where's my notebook? Where are my poems? I didn't bring my notebook. I've left it at home. Oh my God, I don't remember the words. What am I going to do? And then I'm just about to walk onto this stage with a completely blank, empty head, no idea what I'm doing. And the microphone's waiting for me. The spotlight's on the microphone.
Yes.
And of course, with this terror, I wake up.
Oh my gosh, at that moment?
Yes.
Wow.
And it's recurring.
And then you literally look that in the face and are doing it.
And then I'm saying, I know I need to conquer this. I choose to do this. And so this getting up there and performing live was a big thing for me.
You've got big balls.
Yes, I've been growing them.
Well, so you know what occurred to me in talking about this that is so freaking magical is that here you're presenting your poetry to Eddie, who is then interpreting that through the two of you speaking together, you explaining to him the emotional context of your creation of that, while he's also starting to turn that language into musical sounds.
Yes.
So then that song happens, but then you're then listening to the merger of that and reinterpreting it to create the theatrical presentation of the video.
Yes.
So it's like this whole like weave in and out and sieve and meld and my gosh. fucking
yes.
awesome.
And that's really interesting that you bring that up, because each step of the process has a completely different approach.
Yes.
Because the poems are written, the poems are never written for an audience.
Right.
The poems, and I had this conversation actually with my sister-in-law, who incidentally is also an amazing artist, and she was speaking to me about, oh yes, the world of spoken word, because there's a whole genre which is spoken word, and I'd never really considered this, that there was even a difference. And I said, well, I don't really understand what you're saying. What do you mean, why are you seeing a difference between poetry and spoken word? And I cross-referenced this with Chris to ask his advice, and he said, well, yes, there's certain spoken word artists who write it with the audience in mind, with the performance in mind, with the let's say the engaging the audience with the intent to engage them in the conversation and to deliver a message, and that could be political or religious or whatever their message is, or any message. But I realized when I was speaking to my sister-in-law that it was seen almost as a hierarchy of like poetry being the top of the ladder and spoken word somewhere being judged on a lower level. I'd never even considered this idea, and of course, but I did want to clarify my process with her in this conversation. I said, well, no, none of my poems are written for an audience. The way I write is very intimate. It's almost a cathartic process. I don't keep a journal. I write poems. I am just releasing what's in me at that moment. And I must say, all of my poems have presented themselves like this, in this same way. I get the feeling like, oh, I feel an urge, and I reach for paper or reach for a pen or reach for my notebook if it's handy. I feel the urge coming. I settle in, and I hold a pencil, and it just flows out.
Yeah.
It just flows, and that means that there could be a pause, or maybe somebody slightly distracts me and pauses, and I'm back in it, and then it writes. And then and I say it because it's almost like it's a divine transmission onto that page.
Yes.
And when the pencil stops or the pen stops, the poem stops.
Yes.
And I'm not controlling the beginning, I'm not controlling the end, I'm just letting it flow out. And I've never ever edited or rewritten or corrected my poems.
Wow.
They're a flow.
Yeah.
And I've always left them as a flow.
And you don't want your human self
intellect
to
impose
interpret
itself
or edit
and say, that's a good poem, that was well written, that phrase works, that phrase doesn't. I've never touched any of them. And they've flown the way they are. And then what happens is often I just like, I feel good, and there's some sort of a release is coming. Quite often that new one, like the most current, just sits there in that book, and it can sit in that book for months, sometimes years.
Yes.
And then when I seek that poem for whatever reason, I go back and or sometimes it happens accidentally when I'm leafing through a notebook and I come across it and it's calling me again. When I read it again, it's almost like it was now meant for me to understand now.
Wow. Like your past self is communicating with your future self.
Yes.
Wow.
It's the most incredible relationship I've had with it, and it's been like this forever. It's almost like my clairvoyant higher self is prophetically speaking to me through the page. And as it's coming out, I don't fully, if I reread it, in that moment, I go, wow, that's beautiful, but I don't fully understand it necessarily.
Like it hasn't been embodied.
It hasn't been embodied. And then over time, and sometimes it could be a week, but often it's months, and sometimes it's years. And then it's almost like my higher self was calling me to grow into that understanding. And when I come to read it again, I'm like, wow, now I get what that means. Or perhaps I realize, oh wow, I've just experienced that now.
Wow. Yeah, almost like a premonition.
It's almost like a premonition.
Wow.
Very personal, of course. I don't have any that I know of, or I have clairvoyant, capabilities to, but it's a very personal thing, and it's just my higher self communicating to me. And
And
so,
allowing you the time that you need to like simmer that down in your psyche and your unconscious, and find it again when you're in a different mindset, as we all evolve each day in our lives, and then look at it with different eyes, literally.
Yes, and receive it with a deeper understanding.
Yes.
So that's the process of the poetry. Like you said, that's a very, 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 very intimate relationship with poetry. So then, of course, to your point, then there's this beautiful collaboration and spontaneity where at this point now where I'm sharing that poem with Eddie, I'm really the, let's call me perhaps I'm now the messenger of that poem. I'm no longer the writer. Well, I never really was. It was spirit really writing the poem, but I'm no longer the interpreter, the conduit, or many different ways to see that. But now I'm actually the deliverer. I'm the delivery messenger person. So that's the role I'm playing at that point when I'm delivering it and performing it.
Well, but even the interpreter, when you're communicating that to Eddie, for him to get a sense of what then his inspiration from that will be, because he will look at those words, especially being from a different language.
Yes, absolutely.
As a different meaning, perhaps.
Absolutely.
So that's really neat.
Yes, almost like the translator of the poem, like literally and metaphorically.
I love that.
Exactly. And he, being the beautiful soul that he is, then interprets that into his creative spirit. And it comes through the sound and the beautiful soundscape that he's creating with his divine transmission of that.
And he's layering his emotions onto that.
Yes.
Gorgeous.
Yes. And then the next process was then when this sound had then become, like you said, it did go through a few phases of then what would you call it? Finishing the product, you know, just just piecing it and just completing the visuals. The soundscape of the visuals, as it were. And then the last process of then putting imagery to that was a completely then almost objective view of everything. Like, how do I now see the protagonist in the poems and see her as a character? And at this point, of course, it's an autobiographical depiction, but it's no longer me, Rachel. And and perhaps that's why I made some creative choices in each of the 6 videos. I'm wearing wigs, and of course that allows me also as a character to become this female warrior protagonist going through her journey of inner discovery, but also allowing me to create this persona that then can be perhaps an inspiring character in other people's lives. And then it's no longer me, it can be any woman or any person or any sentient being who might hear those words, feel that music, and then relate to this character that's performing visually.
So it starts from this very intimate, this is me speaking back to myself and only me, and then you share it with one other that you trust, Eddie, and then you layer the emotions of each interpretation together, and then you reinterpret that melding of emotions that you share together into your visual what do I want to say, not explanation, but expression. Of that. It like keeps going through this reinterpretive process. And then, interestingly, going back to the spoken word thing, where you're writing only for yourself, but you're choosing, as you said, to share this with others, which means you're then considering your audience and how you're going to present that to them.
Exactly, and that's the final stage where I now am the performer. And so then it's an act. But how do I transmit that message the best I can to that audience? Exactly. And of course that can change on location and situation and the type of audience that's going to be there. So sort of imagining that, and that's a whole nother aspect of creativity, performing a completed piece of work. The improvisation per se hasn't had, I mean, I rehearsed.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, I had to
Yes.
rehearse and rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. I had to not only just perfect the words so that they were so natural to me that I wasn't thinking about the words anymore.
Yeah.
It's then everything, the body language and the
Yeah.
performance, and it's live. So
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's rehearsing for a live performance. And that was really my absolute newest training I had to go through. And that was, you know, exciting and terrifying all at the same time.
So
Yes.
your balls just got a lot bigger. Holy shit. You literally took on like your scariest nightmare.
I did.
At your rawest. I mean, geez, to take this divine secret thing for you and choose to literally publicly share it. It's just like, here I am. Eek.
Yes. But maybe because of those processes, I was then able to do it.
Get to that final
because
point.
I had, in a way, dressed it up, literally.
Yes, good point.
And so I got it ready for the stage, as it were.
Yes.
So, yes.
Fucking amazing story. I'll bet you didn't expect this interview to go this way.
No.
So, why do you choose to live where you live geographically?
Ooh, that's a lovely question. Well, let's preface that with Chris and I are blessed with 3 locations that we continually move between. So I'm very blessed with the fact that I have these 3 incredible environments that I love to be in. And
the Golden Triangle.
The Golden Triangle, thank you. That's what we nickname it. Yes. And they all have their special qualities to them. And like you said, right now we're in our backyard in Los Angeles, and I love LA, and I can't quite describe why. I relate to the air, the space. I love the ocean. I love the sunshine. Remember, I'm British as well, so you know, growing up with a lot of rain and a lot of clouds, and of course I had this beautiful connection to nature. But, you know, as a young woman, I left England at the age of 21 and basically never went back there to live.
Yeah.
I mean, visiting, of course, visiting friends and family, but I wanted to travel the world, and I was fortunate that my fashion career was sort of pulling me to different countries and different nationalities and different cultures to experience and to learn from, and so I think I had this natural kind of traveling heart, and not literally nomadic, but, you know, I think I really aspired to that kind of beautiful, fluid way of living and living in different countries, and challenging my environment to change, and how can I grow through that change, that constant change, and I think that was really beautiful. So. But of course, I think my point was that I was attracted to the big cities. I wanted to live in a city. I mean, I grew up in nature in the village, and of course, I wanted to escape to the big
calm,
city.
Chill, Norm, all the neighbors, you know them by first, middle, and last name.
Oh, yes, and they know all your business, too.
Yes. So some anonymity and excitement to the city.
Yes, and to be that little independent soul where you can just be who you want to be, and nobody's really watching, no one's really paying any attention. So I was really looking for the big city, and I did it for decades, you know, and of course, you know, the glamour and the non-glamour of the fashion industry that you know about very much too, you know, but that hectic lifestyle and a lot of pressure but excitement at the same time, and of course learning the wild ride,
the up and down,
the ups
extremes.
and downs, learning new languages. I mean, I loved all of that, but I believe not only did I meet Chris 12 years ago, but and he is born and bred Los Angeles, but I feel what I have in Los Angeles is that beautiful balance of a much more calming day-to-day existence in the city, because of course we're in a big, massive metropolis, but the space that Los Angeles offers has enabled us to create this beautiful sanctuary, and so I can completely switch off from the city right in the center of the city.
Yes.
And I love that.
Literally where we're sitting feels very much like that. Like
yes.
You could just zen out here and escape from it or
Yes.
step literally onto the sidewalk and be like, I'm in it, let's go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's why I love Los Angeles in general, but I love our home here because of that. And I think after all my crazy city lifestyles that I'd been through, Los Angeles offered that perfect balance.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm very, very happy here. And then to complete the Golden Triangle, Chris and I 10 years ago found the land out in the northern Mojave Desert, right at the foothills of the eastern Sierra Mountains, and our hearts just connected with the land. I mean, it's sacred land. It's absolutely beautiful out there, and we were still living in New York at the time, so we would fly back and forth from New York after having bought a house in the middle of the desert with basically very few neighbors. I mean, we're just surrounded by thousands, millions of wilderness.
Yeah.
And
the crazy contrast between the two.
And the contrast. And I'll never forget, because quite often, instead of flying to LA and then driving out to the desert, we sometimes used to select the Las Vegas trip. So we would fly out to Las Vegas, pick up our rental cars, just so that we could drive the 6 hours through Death Valley.
Yes.
And we would like crack open a beer, mid-desert flight, just like flying through on, some car that we'd rented. We'd be flying through the desert, and I would literally start to weep. Tears and tears would just flow down my face, and we'd be streaming along with the wind in our hair and sipping on our beer, and I would be crying, and those tears were literally releasing all of the toxins and stress and everything that I had just literally brought with me from
and the energy of a
New York.
ton of people around you all the time, and then the literal nothingness of like you and sitting with yourself at that point,
exactly.
and your partner.
Yes. And the desert, the healing energy of the desert, and we would just, it would just be absolutely beautiful. So eventually we realized that, we loved New York. It was full of fun, and then at some point we were both ready to come back to LA, and of course, move back into our house in LA, and then have this beautiful life of LA and Olancha. That's the name of the little area there up in the eastern Sierras. And then just more recently, about 4 years ago, we found this amazing house in Joshua Tree, and it's near Pioneer Town, and which is of course where we've just had our beautiful girls' weekend retreat, and that has a whole nother beautiful energy of desert there. That house is, and that house really, really welcomes community and group. I mean, I think that land there is crying out for community and a healing on the whole,
and an intentional convergence, as we witnessed. It's like, it's not enough to just do you and your sacred thing on your own here alone. We need the combined power of the intentional energies that are being built here.
Yes, that's right.
It feels very much like that.
Yes, and in that sense, it's a very different spirit from Olancha, because you've stayed at our home
alone
there too
for 2 weeks, crying in the desert.
Yes!
And it received me, and it nourished me, and it healed me. And
but Olancha encourages the individual spiritual journey.
Yes.
Chris and I, we will deep dive into macro dosing of mushrooms up there in Olancha, and what will happen almost every time is that Chris and I will do our ceremony, we'll consume, and then we just move in our different ways, and we separate for 6 to 8 hours on our own individual mushroom journey and connect with spirit in completely individual different ways, always with the land,
it's like being in relationship with the land.
In relationship with the land.
I feel many previous souls there present with me while I'm quote unquote alone, which is interesting.
That's very true. Yeah, the spirit of the land it's buzzing with spirit and many different spirits, and they nurture you through those spiritual journeys. And then you can come around when you're sort of, your state of consciousness is shifting back in again, and Chris and I will find each other on a rock. After 6-8 hours of just wandering, and then come back and then share our journeys, and it's beautiful, and the land out there really encourages that courageous individual search of truth. And Joshua Tree, I feel, really encourages, as you said, this communal discovery together.
Yeah.
And so they both have very different energies and spirit.
And an interesting contribution, too. Like, there's almost, I don't like to use the word expectation, but it's almost like the way the land in Joshua Tree holds you is that it will become circular, that it will feed back into itself,
Yes.
that it will promote back into, instead of taking away, and contemplating in solidarity with yourself with, like, this is what that was meant to be. This is like, what is the communal melding of that? Like, what does this all mean together?
Yes.
I can contribute my part, but then it's rounded out by other people sharing their experiences with you.
Yes,
and almost
yes.
like blooming or filling in more rich colors into your own experience.
Yes, yeah, that's very true.
And
Very
finding
true.
that while you thought you were in your own, let's say, meditative state, that actually you were all on a journey together, and that when you verbalize it, you're like, oh yes, you were there.
Yes, exactly. Yes, it's true.
Really
And I
neat.
think that weekend that we've just spent together was not only an experiment in that, but it was also a confirmation of what you inherently know and
Yes.
feel. But it was beautiful, and I think we all came away from that experience with beautiful reflections on what had happened and how it had happened, how it had unfolded. But the land was creating that beautiful container for us to feel safe.
Yes.
There's a mothering.
Yes.
There's a mothering of that space in Joshua Tree, particularly. I mean, obviously, particularly our home.
Yeah.
Because there's many areas in Joshua Tree, and maybe there are obviously different pockets of energy. But that particular spot in Joshua Tree is really it's this mothering and nurturing nature that's coming through the land, and I would say, again, just to sort of compare to Alancha, I feel it's not so much a mothering energy, it's more of a goddess energy, and there's a slight difference there.
Yes, there is.
It's
more of like a single warrioress power.
Yeah.
And I love that you use the word courageous. That
Yes.
is perfect.
It requires, Alancha demands that you are brave.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfectly said.
Yes, you cannot enter that land or any spiritual journey unless you are ready for that journey. And it takes preparation, courage, bravery, and then, of course, ultimately surrender.
Yes.
Because the goddess on that land will literally rip you to shreds.
Yeah.
In the most healing, nurturing way, but she will destroy your ego in a way.
The more you fight, the bigger the chips she'll take.
Yes,
chip.
Surrender.
Yes.
That's all you can do with the power of the sacred land in Alancha.
And isn't that in essence what true strength is actually surrender?
Yes.
That true confidence in a person comes from a softening, and eliminating the need to react against and reject and push.
Yes.
And allow.
Yes, allow all that is.
Yes.
Allow all that arises. That arises, and it's a complete acceptance and surrender and acknowledgement, though.
Yeah.
And respect.
Yeah, total respect.
All that which is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Damn, I'm pretty impressed with the way that we've described the essence of these places.
Yes, and I've never really gone to that extent of verbalizing it, obviously because it's such an energetic feeling, but that was really interesting to describe them and see them that way.
It was wildly impactful for me after the experience in Joshua Tree this weekend at the retreat. My takeaway of that, if you will, was like, it blew me away to realize how wonderfully powerful we can all be together without without feeling like you have to perform for others, being in your own thing, but knowing that you're contributing, and then realizing how much more powerful you are together.
Yes.
Creating that.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, this is a whole new journey for me. I am now
Yes.
actively seeking out
Yes.
people to create that
yes.
energy with.
Well, that is so interesting, and as we know, everything comes to us at the right time,
Yes.
because we know that when you embark on your spiritual journey, you do need to take quite a lot of time at the beginning to just take care of yourself.
Yeah.
You can't help other people if you are broken inside,
Yeah.
and if you are needing that care and nourishment and safety within yourself, and creating and knowing where your safety zones are, knowing where you're feeling challenged, and and of course we're going to be continuing growing with that for the rest of our lives, but it's fundamental to take that time at the beginning. And I know I've taken my time, and it's not being selfish, it's self-caring, so that you can then be a beautiful contribution to the whole. And I know you've spent your time working with yourself and being with yourself, and just embarking on that self-care journey, which is all about your self-discovery. It's all about realization of self. And so it's really beautiful that we understand that there's a process that we have to dedicate to ourselves first.
Yeah.
And with the view that when we're ready, and one day soon, we will be in a position to contribute to that whole in the most positive way. But the last thing you want to do really is engage in a group ceremony or a group gathering when all you bring to the table is dumping your luggage in the middle and saying, can somebody else please fix my luggage?
Yes, right.
It
feels like an honoring and a respect with the intention of fixing yourself first, getting more centered, really realizing that only we can truly love ourselves and repair ourselves, and intentionally presenting ourselves to the group in the future after that self-care, and saying, I now am ready to contribute to you, not take. And
yes, exactly. So there's a process, and there's a process and a time, and I think we'll never really feel ready in a way to be the instigator of helping others. But again, the moment presents itself to us, and I've never ever considered in my life to organize a girls' retreat in the weekend, or for a weekend in the desert. And we've had a Lancha now for 10 years, we've had Josh Retreat for 4 years, but something was calling me to do it now. And why is it now? Because I felt ready. I mean, of course, I'm now, this is a whole new learning curve. Now how do I manage this, and how do I give as much as I can to the community or the communal gathering, and of course I've learned so much, and I've we've both been helping each other with loads of feedback, and myself as well. I realized a lot of things last night, a few days afterwards. What do I need actually to strengthen myself further, to be able to really inhabit, or really to provide this opportunity to others? What can I do now to elevate my level of self-care so that I can actually contribute even more to these these gatherings? So it's but for where it came from, I don't know, and I'm not questioning it. I felt I felt the need, and I knew the people I was going to experiment with, and you were one of those, and it's I was like, yes, okay, let's see how this evolves and, presents itself.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It felt perfect, the timing. And even for me, like I said, I don't know that for sure I know at other parts of my life, even recently. Well, for sure I threw myself out into nature by myself for 3 months intentionally.
Yes.
I would not have chosen this. I was so damaged still, I was withdrawn, intentionally needing that self-nurturing.
Yes.
Viscerally feeling it as well as spiritually. And now, and this before, I'm blossoming. exponentially.
Yes.
And I am like, fuck yeah, women's retreat, woo, party. Like, fully in, you know, not even a toe, fucking the whole schlemaddle.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
So
and it was such a pleasure to experience you in that energy bubble because I've known you for a long time now, and I saw you in another space, in another energy bubble, and that also, I think it was of course a very conscious decision to only have females at the retreat, because there's a certain liberation that happens when you've only got girl energy around, and we can just really let ourselves really let a lot of shit go just because of that. Unedited, yes. So it was my
even as far as like
pleasure.
Optional clothing. I mean, even that.
Yes.
It would always be in the back of my mind. Not that I'm that self-conscious about nudity, but the reality is, out of respect for other females as well, I would never go
full naked with the presence of maybe their boyfriend or their husband. I agree.
So just taking off all of the considerations so that we can get down to the real work is really huge.
Exactly. It's about ripping away any preconditions, any pre-inhibitions, and people may still have their inhibitions. That's not the point. But it's like we're taking away obvious obstacles.
Yes.
And unfortunately, that meant removing penises from the group.
Except for the surprise cacti peni that popped up in our morning ritual. Oh, there you are.
Yes.
Representation.
Worship the penis.
Yes.
That's good.
Penis. So tell me, which personality traits of yours have helped and hindered you?
Oh, interesting. So one trait that's done both for me? Yes.
No, either or.
Oh, okay, yes. Gosh, so definitely, and this is a trait that I think I had from a young girl. Like it's a trait, but it was enhanced by my father's encouragement, and that is independence. Independence. And after my dad passed, I asked my mum, what is the thing that you remember most about Dad, or how would you honor Dad? You know, what biggest influence did Dad have on you, like husband to wife? And my mum replied, he supported my independence, he encouraged my independence, and he helped me become an independent woman.
Beautiful.
And as a daughter, I replied, oh my goodness. Same. So dad to
Gorgeous.
Daughter just encouraged my independence and did everything he could to support that independence and make me feel safe in that independence.
And isn't that really the epitome of true unconditional love that we seek in a relationship, romantic or friend, whatever?
Yes.
Is a person's selflessness in the promotion of the other's greatest achievement of themselves.
Absolutely. And that has been, I think, obviously one of my strengths. What I've had to learn with that, though, is when and how, and it's all a very individual process, of course, but when and how do you surrender that independence in the name of love for anyone or anything? And so, we can, like any label, like any adjective or any, attachment that we have to any kind of labeling, we can take that to its extremes. Yes. And I know I did, in my, by the time I'm in my early mid-20s, I'm just ferociously independent.
Yeah. You're like, here's my strong arm.
Yes.
Want to see it again?
Yes. So in meeting Chris, my husband, I actually learned, I think, for the first time to just release that attachment to my independence. And in doing so, I also have a partner, who encourages my independence as well. So that's something that I've told Chris, that aspect of my father and him actually are very similar. And so I've never really had to curtail my independence at all, but I had to surrender it to learn that I always had it.
Yeah, and strength in numbers, really.
Yes.
You got stronger when you surrendered.
Yes, for sure. And just more, and in that surrendering, you develop a genuine, natural confidence. Mm-hmm. Because many people express themselves with confidence. Many people
false
do.
Confidence.
But it's false. It's not coming from a true place of of inner confidence.
Yes.
And I think that I have been blessed with my father and Chris, who have encouraged that genuinity within me to continue to just be my natural confident self.
And provided a really stable foundation where you feel safe to explore.
Yes.
Within that.
Yes,
A
definitely.
security.
Definitely.
Yeah, I feel that.
So that's one for sure. Yes. I think another one is where I think I've over the years misunderstood it, and I think many of us as women have also misunderstood this. So that this idea of kindness, so this idea of being kind, expressing kindness, receiving kindness, it's something that I think I've struggled with my whole life, because I think, like many of us, we want to be kind, we want to be the nice person, we want to be unoffensive, we want to be soft and fluid, and all of these things can be, the word kindness, I think, has just been sort of transmuted negatively, I think, in our use of language. Women are expected to be kind,
right?
And when we actually create whether it's natural boundaries, or we create environments for ourselves that we're happy with, and we're like, well, this isn't settling with me, but this is where I want to be, or when we express our preferences,
yes,
this can sometimes be received on the outside world, and I mean very generally speaking,
yes,
in our Western society, as being too forceful, or too too selfish, or
or frankly a bitch,
or frankly you're a bitch. Yes, exactly. So there's been a pressure on us, I think,
yes,
over thousands of years of oppression, let's be honest,
grin and bear it,
to be kind.
Yeah,
exactly. And I think I've had to really work with that in myself and figure out I've always been known as a kind person.
Yes.
So at what point am I still being kind, and at what point have I just completely and utterly surrendered my desires,
yes,
preferences, limitations, whatever, just in the face of kindness to be kind to somebody
yes.
else? So
and how much are you sacrificing yourself?
Exactly. When is this kindness
suffering silently?
Yes. When has this kindness become martyrdom?
Yes. Yes.
And so. So I'm really spending this is why it's quite current on my mind right now, because I'm really in the process of just opening myself to receiving the teachings of the behavioral patterns that are associated with certain sentiments.
Yes.
So yes, kindness is one, but I'm really trying to travel down the avenue of cultivating compassion. And this and I can't put words to it yet, because I'm still very much at the beginning of this process in my life, and I'm experimenting with it also, and I'm trying to find the balance between being kind with a natural state of being kind, and also cultivating compassion, which I believe is a whole nother level that goes way beyond kindness.
Yes,
and
I agree.
And of course, I am reaching out to great masters who have had thousands of years of understanding of this beautiful word, compassion, and so I'm very much in that process of reaching out to them through reading their books, and trying to understand a different way to at least begin to conceptually understand this, and then with their wisdom, ask for me to receive that and
embodiment,
and embody that into my being.
Yes.
So I feel that's my current growth that I'm focusing on right
Amazing.
now. Yes.
Your new artistic endeavor.
There we go.
With yourself. With
Yes.
your self-creation.
Yes, yes.
How have self-reliance and community aided you?
Yes, very much. I think both self-reliance and community for me have both been about trust. And growing up, I learnt quickly really to only fully trust myself. and again, like I said, I had a beautiful childhood, but it's not without its traumas, it's not without its experiences that teach you that not everybody
has your best interest
in mind. And so I think, with that, let's call it disappointment in trust, I did build up a lot of barriers around me, and I did create a very, very private emotional space for myself that I didn't share with anybody.
Out of self-protection.
Yes. And of course that gave birth to poetry. So of course it all comes a full circle, and it's all a beautiful journey of self-discovery. But I think that I became very self-reliant, and of course, again, with the influence of my father encouraging independence, that was of course amazing. So independence in the physical realm, brilliant. But I also created this sort of idea of self-reliance, which was actually negating the community.
Yes.
And I mean on an emotional level, on a very internal level. So this, I think it's been a lifelong project for me to actually trust in community, and I've taken it very slowly, and I'm happy that I've taken it slowly, because just person by person, step by step, and of course I continue to and I'm using this word deliberately, I continue to feel the disappointment of trust that's been broken. But I would say that about 2 years ago, I finally understood it, and I realized that trust begins with yourself.
Yes.
And I realized for the first time, wow, it doesn't matter whether you're self-reliant. It doesn't matter whether you're reliant on community. Trust in you and trust in this beautiful universal energy, the universe, whatever you want to provide and create abundance, that wants to provide and create abundance. That is everything. It creates, again, a natural calmness and confidence in your self-reliant capabilities, but it also creates a lovely, calm, trusted confidence in your community.
Yeah.
And so I realized that these for me, that self-reliance and community, the foundation of that is trust.
Yeah.
So it's trust within yourself. Then you can become genuinely self-reliant when you need to, but you can also become genuinely involved in the community when that's requested from you also.
Yes.
So that's where I'm at with that at the moment.
So interesting. It's like I'm finding right now in speaking about this kind of irony that in reality, self-reliance is a distrust of not only others, but actually self too.
Correct.
Because if the trust gets built within ourselves first, that trust becomes abundant in our entire life.
Yes. It's actually a lack of self-trust.
Yes.
That creates this overzealous self-reliance.
And when we don't trust others, it's because we don't trust ourselves first.
Yes.
That's a great point.
And I just really understood this for myself, that is, about 2 years ago. Yes.
Yeah, new.
Yeah, it's new, it's fresh, and it feels good, and I'm working on that trust, and I remind myself every day to trust.
I feel like when you say that, like, my shoulders are relaxing. Like, it's like the reminder of, like, oh yeah.
Yes.
Self-trust.
Yes.
Is where it's there, it's present, and all we have to do is recognize it and honor embrace it.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
P.S. listeners, these are all of our conversations, so too bad for you. You only get one right now.
Yes.
We'll have to do a redux. How has choosing what you've chosen to do in your life affected other areas of your life?
Yes. So, yes, everything is completely and utterly intertwined, even to the point of escaping the idyllic childhood I had, growing up in nature, in commune with spirit. galloping naked bareback with my horse through the countryside, which, yes, I did do that many times.
Sounds like verbal porn.
And yeah, that's another YouTube channel.
Yes.
Yes. And literally the full moon would rise and I would sneak out of my bedroom. I would just grab my horse and I would gallop under the full moon.
Ew, wild wolf.
Oh, yes. And so that, like, having that as the basis of your being, as the basis of your experience as a young girl / woman experiencing this, and then seeking the absolute contrast of a crazy city, vibrant city, foreign country, fashion, the ridiculousness and fickleness and superficiality of fashion.
Yes, the facade of that.
The facade. And I actively sought it. My spirit was pushing me in the complete opposite direction because it needed to fully understand the opposing attractions and aversions to this incredible, beautiful welcome into the world I'd experienced.
And it was like you released yourself far and wide, and then you contracted yourself. You found an environment that would contain you, if it were.
Yes.
Like there are constant reminders of the stay here.
Yes.
Interesting.
And yet I would continue to
Push
rebel
against it.
and explode them and push up against it. And in fact, actually, the first track on the album is actually called Contradiction of Self.
Yes.
And this sense of contradiction, it's been living with me my whole life, or let's say my whole life since I left the village. And went to art school and everything. And and I've known, and this has been expressed in my poetry for all these years, I've known that I will return home. I've known that I will return back to myself. I've always known that was my place to be. I've always known that was my safe space, nature.
Your anchor.
My anchor, the anchor of my being, the safe space of my inner core, and nature was going to bring that back to me, or I was going to return to nature, and I knew that, and I always knew, by the time I'm 40s, I'm going to be done with all this fashion rubbish,
right.
I know that I will re-embark on a new yet old journey, pick up from where I left off. But what these 25 plus years did for me was challenge me on all levels, and I needed to know what this crazy material world was. I needed to know what this crazy species called human beings, like, who are these people and why are they so different, and what are their thoughts and where are we coming from, and I needed to really just experience that. Like, my spirit was craving it, like interaction, conversation, learn, different cultures, different different environments and different ways of different perspectives, different ways of seeing the world.
It makes me think of bat sonar.
Right.
Like a recalibration. It's like test the limit, feel the boundaries, send the sound waves out, wait for it to return, to acknowledge where you are at each different time of being.
Yeah, that's so funny that you mentioned that, because I wrote this major poem about the bat
well, I'm
sonar.
not surprised. We're so connected.
Of course. But I will
find to your inner bat.
Yes, I was speaking to my inner bat.
Look at that.
And it was very interesting, because at the time I was actually going through a very, very painful process of realizing that I had come to the end of my acceptance of this contradiction, and the contradiction had to end, and I needed to return back to where I knew I really needed to be. And so this poem came out of this infused state of contradiction that I was no longer happy with. And it was, I'll have to find the poem for you and send it to you. But the poem spoke to the fact that I felt that my vibration was actually echoing out into, like you said, actually, just reflecting back off the caves. But it was being expressed with a certain frequency that was resounding back to me in the form of screams. So I was putting out my vibrational voice. It was coming back to me as screams, but because it was actually on a different frequency from others around me, nobody could hear me screaming.
Whoa.
Yes.
Wow, that's... I was going to say poetic, but that would be so cheesy.
Yes.
But poetically beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll send
you. Wait.
I'll send you that poem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
If you were to meet your younger self as you were first embarking on your journey, what would you tell them?
Well, I'll share a story with you which I might have already shared with you. I did meet my younger self.
Yes.
I participated in a shamanic journeying session, and Chris and I had been visiting our shaman for a number of years in New York, after coming back from the Amazon jungle, after traveling down there. And we went on a series of
Hello,
a little helicopter
Hello,
friend.
Big Bird.
Hello, Big Bird. And we were taught how to journey, and of course there's many different journeying techniques, many different indigenous peoples that journey in different ways, but this one was particular. It was a particular journeying called soul retrieval, and the concept is that we're obviously born with a complete soul.
Yes.
Everybody's born with a complete soul. And as we enter into the human realm and we start to experience our human lives, as things happen to us, or as things, manifest in our lives, and if they result in trauma, so if they're traumatic or painful experiences, a little piece of our soul is left behind.
Yeah.
And as we, of course, continue to live our lives, little pieces of our soul are left in loads of different little areas of our life.
Yeah.
And so soul retrieval is the practice of journeying to your younger self, meeting with your younger self, and actually asking that younger self if they are ready to now join you and come back into the present moment.
Yes.
Because that person of yourself, that little piece of your soul, is actually residing and stuck in its little vortex, and it's stuck in that moment in your past.
Yeah.
And so I did do this journeying, and it was absolutely beautiful, because I did go back and visit me as little Rachel, as a little girl, and I found myself, and I sat with her, and just as I'm sitting here with you.
Yes.
And I sat with her, and I told her that I loved her, and she had her head turned away from me.
Yes.
So I was just speaking
on the
to
bed
her.
next to her.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. And I just put my arm on her, my hand on her arm. I might have just caressed her shoulder a little bit, and I asked if she would like to come back with me. And I had to tell her that I will honor her, and I will respect her, and I will take care of her, and I will love her, and I will always love her. And as I'm speaking to her and just touching her arm, she slowly turned around and looked at me, and then leant in for a hug, and then I hugged her.
Wow.
And I said, thank you for coming back to me. I will always love you, and if you're ready now, we'll go back together.
Yes.
And then we journeyed back out of that moment, and I brought her with me to that present moment.
Oh my God, that gives me chills. It makes me want to cry.
Yes,
she
it was beautiful.
Lost. She was waiting to be guided back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Should we cry now?
Yes, let's cry. We love a good cry.
We love a good cry.
Yes.
Anywhere, day or time.
Yes.
If you had a whole other lifetime after this one, would it change the way you're doing this now?
No. No. We spoke about this the other day. I'm so grateful for every twist and turn that my life has taken, and I'm hoping, and I'm sure it's the same for many people. It's this wondrous, beautiful thing called life, and I wouldn't want to change it. It just has this beautiful way of unfolding day by day, and I enjoy observing myself unfold every day. I enjoy observing everybody around me that unfolds every single day.
Yes.
And I just love it, and I love it for what it is. I do hope I come back again, though.
Yes. As a human?
I would love to come back as a human. I would love to come back as a human.
Sometimes I think I'd like to come back as a cat that gets fed and loved.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
It might be. Well, I mean, what am I saying? I love all the challenges. I'm like, give it to me. I've got a tougher skin now. What's the next one?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, the nuances are so exciting. When you get past some of the painful things, you really appreciate them.
Yes,
I do.
Me
so
too.
deeply.
Me too. Yes.
I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yes.
Really.
Yes.
It's kind of like the contradiction or the contrast in like, this is painful, this is tough, this is low, and then the like catapult out of that is like, holy shit.
Yes. 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 Very much.
Yeah.
Very much.
Do you have a saying or a quote or a mantra that you use most frequently in your life right now?
I don't think I have that, but I do have a little ritual that happens every morning.
Okay.
If that would contribute to answering that question, because it's something that Chris and I do every morning. We roll around and slowly wake each other up, and then we both love tea, and we drink tea. And Chris has his teapot with his tea, and I have my teapot with my tea. We have different preferences. And we take it in turns. Doesn't matter. Whoever just gets up for it. It's normally me, actually. I love to get up and make the tea. And I feed the dogs at the same time. And then we return back to bed with our teapots. So we have our little teapot beside our beds. And then when we're ready, we say, are we ready to bless? Yes, let's bless. And then we each bless our own teapot. And with that, it's an opportunity for us to give thanks.
Yes.
So it's a blessing of gratitude.
Yes.
And we've done this ever since we first met. So we've been doing this for 12 years, and it's different every day. That's why it's not a mantra or a saying or a motto, but it changes every day. But it's always giving thanks. So often, thank you for this amazing day. I mean, it begins with that. But then, there's different things that come to mind, different mornings, when there could be people that are more present in your world at that time, or it could be situations that are more present in that, or lessons to learn, or just many, many things to be grateful for. And we do it silently. Chris says his blessings, and I say my blessings, and we don't...
It's like, how many helicopters can we have over this house within a 3.5 minute period?
Exactly.
Okay, we feel your protective presence. Thank you for that. Thank you for looking after us.
Thank you for looking after us. This is Los Angeles, East Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. It is being true to itself.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And now fuck off. I'm setting a boundary, okay?
Yes. Yeah, so that's what we do.
Yeah,
so that's
it's a
ritual. A ritual of gratitude every morning. Yes. And with our tea, and we specifically bless the tea because the water molecules of the tea will absorb that blessing and actually then nourish us with our blessing.
And you'll carry that in your cells all day long.
All through the day.
Forever long.
Yes.
Yes, that's gorgeous.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to start my own like that. I don't know if I'll bless my coffee. I think it needs to be before that. I think I'll start doing maybe a water ceremony. Because I like to get up and immediately go into my meditation, so I don't come up with any crafty excuses.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's, I'm going to get back to that. I was doing that actually for a bit.
Yes, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, water...
In my special ceramic
your lovely, beautiful ceramic pots. Yes. And water's great, of course. I mean, water is in tea, of course, but it's... Pure water could even be the best because it's the vessel to absorb all of your blessings, and you can change the crystalline formation of all of the water molecules. I mean, that's why we did it, because we were aware of sacred water and how your energetic transmissions to the water molecules will actually take, for example, stagnant water, and literally the crystal formations of the water molecules
will change.
They could be transmuted and dark and grey and deformed, missing, because they have a 6-point leg, just like a snowflake.
Yes.
And they can be deformed with prayer of specifically gratitude and or love.
Yes.
Just those two. And of course, we're not talking about language. It doesn't matter what language you're using.
Right.
But the sentiment, the intention of gratitude and love will actually rebuild. The water will actually reconstruct its crystalline structure.
Wow.
You can purify the water literally through your prayer of gratitude.
Yes.
And then wouldn't you want to ingest that?
Exactly.
Yes.
And have that become
Yes.
of you. And that's, that's making me think about the Japanese scientist that we all
Yes,
heard
that's
of with
right.
the water jars,
Mhm.
where he wrote love and hate, and
Yes.
then he looked at them under the microscope, and the forms were
Mhm.
drastically different as you
Yes.
just described them. And I'm thinking about the ceramic that I love, just the touch of it and
Yes.
the earthiness of it, and I'm thinking. And now I've started making my own ceramics, and I'm thinking about how on the bottom of mine is my name, because at my studio, my pottery studio, they didn't want it to get lost in the kiln. And
Oh,
blah, blah.
right, yes.
But I'm thinking, actually, each one of those needs to be marked with some kind of sentiment of love. The word love itself, it can be, or it can be a symbol.
Yes.
But that
Yes.
will energetically bless that for all who partake
Yes,
of
that's a
whatever
lovely
is
idea.
inside that.
Lovely idea.
Yes. I want a whole set. I want every single
Yes.
plate I ever fucking use again to say love on it.
Yes. Beautiful. Yes. Yes. And then the receiver of your gift that you've created is also receiving the energetic, and every time they fill it up, it's there in its essence.
Yes.
And it may inspire them also to create their own loving or love / or gratitude ritual around that.
Yeah.
Around that, yes.
Yeah.
It's interesting because the scientist that I heard about actually had a third vessel as well.
Oh.
There was love, there was hate,
Yes.
and there was complete nothing, like negligence.
Oh.
Yes, actually,
Neutral.
He did not pay any attention to
ignored.
that vessel at all. So he had the love, which of course was absolutely perfect and crystalline and beautiful. He had the hate, which was dark and deformed and and obviously lacking,
jagged
and angry looking almost.
Yeah.
And then the negligence was
The
rotten.
worst.
It was the worst.
Worse than hate, because
Yes.
at least hate is attention.
Exactly.
Whoa, at least hate is energy.
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes.
Mind
This
blowing.
vessel was black and rotten and putrid because it had had no attention whatsoever. And that
Neglect
blew
is
my
the
That
worst.
blew my mind. So think of all of our beautiful
Complete
children.
disregard.
Think of all of our beautiful children in the world. Those who actually experience neglect is the worst thing you can do energetically to them. And of course, I'm not advocating violence and anger.
Right.
But neglecting a child is one of the worst things you could do.
I hope this is hearing us. I hope we didn't just miss that whole last part.
Right.
Because that's so amazing. But you know what? If I have to, I'll transcribe it.
Okay.
Well, do you have any questions for me, or would you like to add anything?
Well, I don't currently have any questions for you because I'm going to interview you.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Sneak peek, listeners. Sneak peek from your eardrums.
Yes.
Rachel is going to interview Sagewlf for the first time.
Yes.
That I've ever been interviewed with my own questions.
Yes, correct. Yes.
Nervous.
And I'm so excited to do it. Yes.
You are the one, the chosen one.
Thank you. And I'm honored to be your interviewer. Yes.
you.
Yes. I'm honored. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I just would like to say thank you so much to your audience for listening.
Yes, right?
Thank you
you
so
guys
much.
for making this a thing.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Sage. Thank you for being who you are.
Thank you.
Thank you for being.
Yeah, and thank you for constantly opening up a space for me to continue being more and more of myself in this world.
Yes.
You allow me total freedom to continue to blossom and discover new parts of myself, and that is fucking worth its weight in gold.
Beautiful. Well, from this perspective, it's beautiful to watch.
I love it. Oh,
yes.
thank you.
Thank you to you too. Yes.